right.
Get the rest of my stuff ready.
All right, we are now live. I'll say give it maybe another 5-ish minutes, let people come in, and then once we have a decent crowd, we can start, I think.
So what's the plan today? Who is presenting in addition to us, and how much time and all of that? Obviously, I read your email. I'm just wondering, considering it's kind of Easter holiday weekend.
Yeah, so there was one other group that was going to present today, but they messaged me a couple days ago and they said they were going to punt it to next month's meetup. So you guys are actually the only ones on the docket at the moment. So you don't need to worry about
Yay, we get to go
any
first.
presentation time. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. We have Dini is in Washington State, and I'm in London State, but I'm also in Easter celebration state. So there's 2 million kids running around. So
That's
but I'll try to concentrate for as long as I can.
all right.
We're talking to, who are we talking to? Is that your spotted whistler? Is that right? What is, who? It's hard to know who's
Yeah, who's
speaking.
who?
Yeah, so Fruta, if you click on more and then in the bottom right corner and then do change name and avatar, you can change it to something a little more recognizable.
Oh, I had that, and then I changed my suit. So
Maybe it
I
lost
guess
the
that
name
changed it.
change. There we go.
Here I am. I got a real name now. Okay.
But I'm trying to see. So spotted whistler, you're going by that, not by a name, right?
Me?
He just updated his name to Fruta on my end.
Oh, okay. How about brown teal and common eider?
So
Will
those might be
we
people
know
that
who
have
people are?
joined the room, joined the thing, but haven't actually entered the room. Rather,
Yeah.
the link on the Discord. Let me go fix that.
There's 7 people here, supposedly. I'm seeing them. Earthworm Jim. There's Frodo, Dirk. Of course, I can't see myself. That makes sense.
How many of you are in this room in a headset, as opposed to, PC?
I think everyone here is currently on desktop. You can tell who's in VR because they'll have visible hands.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
that's clever.
I always I liked to try and join in VR when I could, but ever since I had to start running the cameras myself, it's just easier to do it straight from desktop. I used to have somebody that would help me out, but I didn't wasn't able to get them for this month.
Are you M-sub?
Yes.
Okay, so the green bit around your name is indicating speaking. Okay.
Yeah, there's a little voice activity meter that shows up when you're talking to. Hopefully Jimmy can make it. He was the one that coordinated this.
He was.
Let me
Yeah,
also-
I talked to some of our other community members, but it's a bit difficult on this weekend. I tried to join in the headset. There was not a problem joining, but couldn't figure out how to move. I even had my keyboard and trackpad connected, but just didn't.
Were you said you were in headset, yeah?
Yeah.
Were you in VR or just in the like flat browser view?
In VR. So I guess I'd have to physically move then or something.
If you're in VR, it should just be the thumbstick.
Yeah, no, it didn't work, but it doesn't matter.
That's strange.
It doesn't matter at all. Yeah. But I think Danny and I are ready anytime.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. Maybe I'll make one more announcement and then we can get started. All right. Durga, I just checked the links on the announcement, and it looks like it was able to go to the Twitch stream just fine for me.
Okay, it didn't work for me. There was an additional dot at the end, which made the link not working for me. And yeah, if it's working for everyone else, that's fine.
Can I ask what platform you clicked on? Like, are you on
Discord.
PC? But I guess PC, Mac, Linux.
Mac.
Okay, because I'm on Windows, and the period didn't seem to get appended for me, so I don't know if it's like a weird behavior there. I'll make a note of that though.
If I'm the only one having this issue, everything's good.
Okay. All right, I think we can get started. And of course, for the people that would usually be here but couldn't make it, I'm streaming and recording everything, so there'll be VODs for everyone to watch of this later. So if you guys want to get started, I think we can go ahead and get going.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to kick it off by introducing Frode and myself. I'm Deanie Gregar from Washington State University, Vancouver. I'm located right across the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon, so West Coast. And Frode Heggelund is living in London, and so he is many hours away from us. So I think it's about 8 o'clock at night for him in London.
Indeed.
And it's Easter Sunday, and he's got children, so they're probably running crazy in the house with eggs.
Yeah.
So the title of our project is called The Future of Text in XR. And we are co-PIs in this project. It was funded by the Sloan Foundation for about $250,000. And what we're trying to do is develop an experiment with how to produce text that academics can use in open source environments like WebXR for VR, XR, AR, extended realities, so that we can work in these spaces without proprietary software. So we really want to learn how to manipulate, navigate, create in three-dimensional space. We think that this is going to change the way we think and work in the future. We also are we draw people together on our project, and we're putting together a symposium in November that Frode will talk more about today. And we also publish a book annually on this topic. So I'm going to turn this over to Frode to take us through the the formal slides that he's developed for us.
Yeah, thank you, Deanie. So, we're on opposite sides of the world. I was lucky enough to come to Washington State to meet the team. Hang on, my cursor went funny on one of the screens here. Okay, I got to be careful how I move it. Okay, now I'm back out, which was absolutely amazing. So anyway, I know I'm preaching to the choir, so this bit's going to be real brief, but this is how we see the world. What is at stake is basically the future of thought and communication. This is the only time in human history when we are about to start working in XR. That's how we see it. And the opportunity is to dream again. There has been so much hypertextual innovations in the 60s and 70s that once we had flat computer screens with the PCs, people knew, quote unquote, what they were, and there hasn't been much innovation. Now we're all asking, what can this new environment be? The user group, academics. That's who we're funded to work for. We think it's a great initial user group because they are supposed to communicate in clear, specific ways, though of course other thinkers are not excluded. By the way, if anybody wants to interrupt, there's absolutely no problem with a question for clarification or whatever it might be. It's not a long presentation though. So the end goal is to allow a user to put on an XR headset of whatever brand, access their PDF library, read and interact with documents in XR and traditional systems. The user should feel that this is a place they can work, that this can be their thinking cap. Talking about PDFs there, they're not ideal, but that is the initial starting documents for our user community. So to achieve the goal, we have three approaches. One is developing software, which we're going to talk about a bit more. One is the connective tissue of metadata, how we can go between systems. And finally, and maybe more importantly, dialogue, meeting, symposium, and books. This is how we see things at the moment. The benefits and detriments of using the Vision Pro. We're talking about the Vision Pro. Not that we have anything against the Quest. The Quest is definitely brilliant for WebXR, probably better than the Vision at the moment. But because of some of its technological advancements, it represents some aspects of the future. However, the better text rendering, which is phenomenal, and the fantastic pass-through, which allows memory palaces to exist, is really good. And for me, as a developer in this project and outside of it, porting between iOS and Vision OS is quite cheap, which is amazing. Detriments that we've noticed so far working in Vision is there's no window management. You can do amazing things with screens all over the place, but they disappear. Really poor keyboard and eyes interface. Very often when I'm working and I'm using a keyboard and trackpad in XR, suddenly I look at something and that's where the cursor wants to be. There's also no WebXR pass-through really for when we're in WebXR, and many other version 1 bugs, but this is version 1. On the WebXR side, and I'm sure you would all agree with this, it's an open standard. It's kind of the default VR space. It's standard on many platforms, and it has all the benefits of browser-based distribution. It's not just an app store. And it is a gateway to technologies. It's a view to WebGL experiences, which can run anywhere, not just in a headset. And it can leverage all the web APIs, which is phenomenal. So PDF is better. PDF is the reality of what we have to deal with, but HTML is better. So we're trying to extract HTML documents for better interactions in this environment. By the way, I just noticed the sound here is a bit spatialized, so maybe I should just turn and talk to you guys this way. Does that sound better for you guys? Does it make a difference? Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I was sharing in a different way, this would be a bit easier to see, but this is recorded within the Vision Pro. I was sitting in Olympia in London. It's really short. I'll play it again. It was very pleasant, very traditional rectangular writing area, nothing fancy there, but the space kind of allowed my eyes to relax, which is nice. And I do, because I have the headset, because of the research that Dini and I do. We have one in Britain and one in America. We go in public and use these things every once in a while to see if people react. In this case here, British Library, a few glances, not very much. And I took the headset off. The people, German students to my left said, "Is that the Apple Vision one? How do they even know that this exists?" It's kind of an amazing thing. This is no longer esoteric technology. Also, here I felt I was sitting too close to people on the side. So that's one of those things we wouldn't have thought about. Because I'm doing this in a window, I'm just going to make this a bit larger. So this is just a few seconds of working downstairs the other day. So I have a PDF in front of me to read. Entertainment on top, because what I'm doing was quite boring. At the bottom, I am writing in a word processor. Separately, I have messages around the spatial things that you all know about. But as I've written underneath here, in private, I don't have to worry about how we look for other people. However, it is spatial, but forward-oriented. There's a term that Dini only recently put to me, and I'm very grateful because that's what it is. It's spatial, but you're still expected to face one specific direction. So the software that we've developed natively, one is a word processor, and it allows you basically to have a huge screen, which is a bit obvious, but it's the same word processing data that if you use the Mac and the iOS version, so you have more control there. Early days, we're building. If you want to try it, please tell me and I'll get your code. Similar with the reader, PDF viewer interface, tack sharp because it's a native app, and we've gone a lot further on what you can see in this tiny little video. You can now choose to not just have a 2-page spread, but all-page spread, for instance. So we're doing some very basic things there. And the Future Text Lab, which is the exciting research we're doing now, we're focused on academic reading in year 1 and authoring in year 2, although, of course, it goes a little bit back and forth. You can't always do one without the other. At the end, I'm going to give you a link so you can experience this yourself. And here is a different kind of 360. This is not forward oriented, it's 360. Anyway, hang on, getting ahead of myself. This is 360 environment, but it's expected that you're sitting at your desk and swiveling around in your chair because hang on, sorry, computer had an issue. Because it's hard to walk around unless you have a dedicated space for VR, right? There's no pass-through. So you go to our website, you get a circle, and the tiny writing says, tap to enter. And once you do, this sphere will live on your hand for extra control. So here we are entering the environment. We're currently focused on references because that's kind of unique for academics. Tap on the little sphere on the hand. One of the controls you have is scaling the text you're reading. If you pinch your 3 smaller fingers, you get a pointer that you can then use to move this around anywhere in a very large column cylinder that you're inside. You can then have further controls by pinching your fingers, such as detaching a reference like this. And just to really show you the hand thing, yeah, here we go. This is what you do. You make a pointing gesture. And the actual laser pointer, excuse me, does not come out of your fingers, which was an early experiment, because then you can't do a pinch. It comes out of your hand. So here we have another piece, and then we can do cool things like find in document. So it finds where that citation is used in the document. So these are quite rudimentary interactions, but I think it shows a really interesting path forward for how people can go through and interact with a reference as a first-class object in a document and not something boring at the end. Any questions on that particular thing? Okay. So the way we try to connect all these things together, the connective tissue, visual meta, it's based on a very simple principle. On a paper book, one of the first pages, it says what the book is. We use BibTeX style, and we put it in an appendix at the back of a document. So we have the same kind of information plus a lot more. This is visual meta from a real normal document. It's got all the headings encoded, who wrote what sections, all the citations, all of that good stuff is in there. And a really key thing is up here in the top left, in pure normal English. It says what it is. The original intent for that was simply that some human on the other side of the world who doesn't know us could then use this metadata to extract it for their reading system, whether it's for a library for a single document. But what we started experimenting with as well is acknowledging that this introduction paragraph here, which says what it is, can be used as a prompt for an LLM. So that means that we can be much more liberal with the data is in here, because this little thing needs to say what it is. So if that little thing says the following is spatial data using this, that, and the other, from our testing so far, it'll just be understood. It's astounding, these LLMs. I think LLMs are going to be a very interesting aspect of AI, as it's not controversial at all. I'm sure we all agree on that. Last sentence on the metadata, Vint Cerf put it really beautiful in the ACM communication. He wrote that visual meta adds an exploitable self-contained self-awareness within some of the objects in this universe and increases their enduring referenceability. We're trying to do connected environment that may or may not have an internet connection happening. Those servers go down. So, a brief overview of some current future design thinking. If you have any comments on this, please do stop or tell. First of all, one of the premises we made, which will probably break, is reading normal text. It's nice to have a flat background, otherwise it gets very arty and difficult to read. That artiness can be very valuable in some situations, but not all. So imagine you have a document rendered based on HTML. It looks like this. And then you tap on the bottom and you get the outline or table of contents on the right, so you can easily grab it and jump to different parts of the document. Imagine also on the left, you can write your notes while you're reading the document, which are stored with the document. You can have notes for specific sections. So that's quite fun. Of course, you can have both of them at the same time, or you can hide them. You can basically choose how you want to read. This is not the most three-dimensional work at all, but we're trying to sometimes go crazy and sometimes look at what's useful. In this model, you could also tap at the bottom to go to references to have a similar interaction to what you saw earlier, here only represented as a single slide. And then something I think is kind of cool, you can choose to go to the library either by touching the sphere on your arm or by tapping on the title. And in the library, you have different connected views. You can see, maybe, depending on the resolution, on the bottom here, You can just list things, but you can also have a map like you're seeing now. And if we then tap connect and show, you get two tabs coming out saying, well, where you can specify what types of things are shown in the library. Is it persons, titles, locations? What is it? And also why are these lines connecting? Are they based on comments, highlights, entities, and so on? This is to be connected via JSON using the visual meta approach to an external library on your Linux, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, whatever other device you have. So that this is your real library that you would work on day to day. And of course, not just in a white little box. You can also have it in AR. And here is a picture. This is Dini sitting to the right here. I'm in the back looking forward. It's a little playful, but I really like the idea of driving or flying through our information. So that's why I thought it was fun to show a bit of AR in that sense. So Dini, summary from you, anything you want to add before we do the last two slides?
No, but I think it's important to note that this is meant to be not a game or entertainment. This is a really different use of VR and extended reality that a lot of folks, that I run with don't really think about. We make in my program, I oversee a program called the Creative Media and Digital Culture Program, and we make games with VR and have been doing so for quite a while. And I began my career working in virtual reality with MUDs and moves and things like that. So interestingly, this is a totally different use than what a lot of my colleagues are using XR for. And it's not a product we're trying to develop. We're trying to explore, like, what is the future of this? Can we use it? And I'm in the middle of producing case studies to think about how I'm already working with computer technology to do the kinds of thing I do in my normal academic life, and how this environment will change it, and what I need to do, and how I need to rethink the way I work potentially in this environment. So much of what we're doing is based on this kind of mindset of how XR can change the way academics works. So Frodo, go ahead and let's go on to the rest of this.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the key point. And the last two slides, one is thefutureoftext.org, or also, and something I think is a bit pathetic, if you just search for the future of text, you'll find us, which, we're a tiny research group. And of course, it's nice. However, why isn't Google, Apple, Microsoft, or them doing it to a big degree? Anyway, here you can learn about our symposium, which you're welcome to attend. And on this last slide, I just want to highlight the dialogue we have. All of which you're invited to join. We have Monday meetings for 2 hours. They are 8 in the morning Pacific time, which is 4 o'clock UK time. We have the annual symposium. The last two have been in London. The next two will be in Washington State. Dini has arranged an incredible venue for us. And really, really interesting people are going to be there, as has been this case for over 10 years now, of an annual symposium on the future of text. Also been publishing a series of books on the future of text. We got 4 of them done so far. We started doing one a year. They are compilations or compendiums or whatever you want to call of interesting people, their perspectives. So if you want to submit something to this, please get in touch. And the metadata that I talked about, if you're interested in that, I would be more than pleased to have that dialogue. And I don't know if you can read, but futuretextlab.info is the project website. My email address is frode@hegland.com, and Dini is dgrigar@wsu.edu. So thank you very much for your attention.
I've been dropping items into the chat. So I dropped in the URLs to the specific project, and then also to Future Text, which is the main site. I also dropped in some information about Vince Cerf, who's going to be talking at our conference, at our symposium. And we are looking to bring people to join us and expand. Part of what we're supposed to be doing with the Sloan Foundation grant is building the community, bringing more people together to think about how to build creative environments like this that's not proprietary, that is open source. And this is a perfect organization to work with, I think, in this regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you folks have any questions?
Not a specific question, but I just wanted to say, very glad that you guys were able to present today. It's not often that we have presentations on topics that are like more academically focused, especially in the WebXR space. Found this really interesting.
Thanks. This
Thank
is the
you.
first presentation we've made, so it's we've only been at, we hit our 3-month mark this past week, so we're just starting to have something to talk about and show. So this is our first presentation together, and we thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess maybe a technical question just about the current demos that you have. What are you built on? Is it just 3JS? Are you using WebXR layers at all? Because I know, especially with like a focus on text, like WebXR quad layers would give you an additional sort of bump in resolution that I think would be very helpful.
3JS and JSON are the two.
Yeah, we try to not be too tied down to one. It is, as Dini says, it is basically 3JS. Everything that is web-based is WebXR, obviously. But outside of that, we try to experiment. We are not building one commercial project. So sometimes we'll go off and, we have a main coder who is very, very good. We also have a community of people who will do crazy stuff. And it really varies. And we have a good dialogue with what people suggest makes sense.
We had a really interesting meeting this past week when we discovered there, when we started this project, we thought Apple Vision Pro would be the way to go because has so many features that lends itself to, I think, academic use, right? And it's also not so focused on games. It really is wide open. It's not defined. It's still pretty oblique about where it's headed in its development. That said, WebXR does not work well in Vision Pro, so we're in Quest 3 and thinking that's really the better place for it. And that was something we talked about this week. And also the other thing is that academics use PDFs, right? That's like I hate PDFs. I really hate them. Yet everything I deal with is in a PDF. And so PDFs are not the most conducive things to read in a VR environment. So we're moving towards working with HTML documents, which we think will be a lot more interesting and visually appealing. So we'll see how that goes. That's the direction we're going right now.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last question: would it be possible to get a link to a copy of these slides or something for future reference? If I can post alongside the VOD, because I know some slides were a little tough to make out on the video.
Yeah, I can do that. Do you prefer PDF or should I record a video?
Whatever's easiest for you.
Oh, do I click this or that button? Absolutely, it does make it a difference.
So do you already have it on YouTube? Why not just give them that link? Share that link with them.
Oh, it's been updated. It's always updated. Yeah. If you copy down my email address, just please email me after this, frode@hegland.com, and I'll upload it. That should be simple.
Thanks.
So yesterday, I was one of my wife's best friend had a birthday, very nice surprise party at a place called Beaverbrook here in England. It turns out to be Lord Beaverbrook, who did the aircraft production for World War II. There was this grand place, and one of the people I was talking to is quite high up in the consultancy world, one of the big companies. And it was a very interesting discussion to talk from a very different perspective than what Dini and I are looking at, which is very specific for academics. He wanted, what's the economics behind it? How could you commercialize it? He was looking very much at how you could save costs and all these things, and he gave some examples what they're doing. And I tried to then explain to him, we're trying to do the opposite. We're trying to expand things and augment things and make it bigger. But even at this point, even with involved people, when someone says, should I buy a headset and try to work in it? Our answer to this point, unless it's for research, no, it's not there yet. Which is a bit sad in a way, but it's also super exciting. It's an entirely open opportunity, and I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today because Apple's not going to fix this. Microsoft, Meta, Google, no. As a community of people who care, especially within the knowledge tools community, we have to do this ourselves. Oh yeah, I see, Jen. You said AVP feels like a fancy dev kit. I agree. And Alan Kay used to say that we should spend $50,000 on our computer if we're researchers because you're buying the future, and that's absolutely what this is. To me, the Apple Vision Pro feels like the Macintosh, the very first Macintosh. So much potential, but not something you can do all your work on yet. Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing I found in working with the Apples, of course, there's not many apps for it, right? So you can download some, but not many, right? There's so much more for Quest. But the nice thing about it is it provides an experience. That is what it does, I think, better than anything else right now. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to make keynote slides while you're in a headset. There's nothing that you gain from that, but you can gain experiences, and that's something that it's done very well.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm trying to be the devil's advocate here. What are
Hello,
you guys?
advocate.
Sorry.
I just said hello, advocate.
Okay. I'm developing web applications for a couple of years, and every time I do that, I start to curse at iOS and start to curse at Apple. What makes you think that Apple will not destroy your fancy WebXR um, ecosystem on Apple Vision Pro, which actually is not there yet? They sort of allow WebXR, as far as I know from Diego from the A-frame community. So that would be my first question. Apple is not really known for treating open source WebXR development nicely.
So I can answer that. First of all, we don't know. However, we have very strong reason to believe that they are taking this seriously because we're working with Apple on this. We're working with Apple Vision Pro team, and their commitment to WebXR is very, very strong. What hampers them more in this case is their obsession in a good way with privacy. So, releasing APIs and making things possible is taking a long time. But this is definitely a conscious strategy from Apple that this is a new world and it can't just be owned by apps. So I'm an absolute Apple fanboy for the products. When it comes to the company itself, I'm perfectly happy to say in a public forum, I can't stand it. It is a very, very commercial company. There's a reason they're worth so much money. So we are in no way tying ourselves to Apple. We're very grateful for their direct involvement. However, the key thing we're trying to do here is, like Dini said, the experiences. As we have in our project, we say we need to experiment to experience. It's like you can't tell what it's like living in a forest by looking at the forest from the outside, obviously. Same thing. So our books, our symposium, the write-ups, the video, the demos, that's what matters. We're not gambling our life on a specific one code thing that'll work forever. That was a bit murky, but I hope it helps a little bit. Yeah, Dini, please.
Yeah, let me add to that too. As I say to our team, we have a fairly large development team. I'm sitting here right now in my office at home, and I have 6 devices across 2 desks. And I pivot among all 6 devices. And that does not include my headsets. And I have the Quest 2 here at home and my Vision Pro. And I'm looking at all these and using them during the day as I'm working. And what I'm really wanting to do is to get rid of all of this stuff and have one thing, just one thing that I can work with. And even if that means it's augmented with a keyboard and a trackpad, that's fine. It makes no sense to have this money that I've got invested to do what I have to do on a daily basis. It's crazy. So I think there's an impetus for folks like me that do this kind of research to build something that's available to us, but also that can be used for a lot of other people in an easy way, using the web, which is such a gift, right? So there's a lot of impetus to build this, and Apple sees that, which is interesting. Know that I have a lab that at the university where I have 85 Macintoshes dating back to 1977 that I use in my research, and I do a lot of preservation work, conservation work for games and digital media, born digital media, and I've been using Macs since late 80s. So I can't say I'm a fangirl, but so much of what has been produced for creativity has come from Apple. And I find myself needing Apple for the work that I have I'm given, or the archives that I've shared with me to fix and maintain. So, yeah.
I think we're all waiting for the iPhone moment.
Okay, you're an Apple fangirl and he's an Apple fanboy.
Actually, I'm not an Apple fangirl. I mean, I think that's what I was trying to say. I'm not denominational, right? I don't privilege one over the other, but every time I get an archive given to me, 99% of it is built on Apple. Other artists are building on Apple. They didn't build on DOS back in the 80s. They were building in the 80s on Apple products, in the 90s onward. And so I get these archives and I find that I need to have the computer that, that existed when these works were produced, so I can see the works in their original glory, so that when I preserve them or reconstruct them, I can do so with some validity. I know what I'm doing. I know what the work really looks like. So the privileging of the people that I work with has been Apple, which has driven this collection I have of Apple products. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm an Apple fanboy myself. Before the '90s, when they got to be strange, and then they got better, and then they were the richest people in the world. But I totally agree on your assessment on that. My second question would be: if you refer to JSON, you probably mean JavaScript object notation.
Yes. I got auto-corrected.
I see.
I like Jason though. It was Jason that made it, right? Jason made
True.
Jason.
I always get this wrong too. But my third question would be, why not prefer Markdown over PDF or HTML?
Ooh, that's a good question. We have people on the team that
Oh,
will prefer that. Frodo, you want to talk about that?
yeah. The thing is, I'm not a fan of Markdown after learning what Markdown really is in practical reality. I have two pieces of software that are my own, Author and Reader. Author was trying to export in Markdown and import in Markdown. Turns out that some of the commands like bold and stuff is quite industry standard, but most of it that you need isn't. So it just really became a mess. And personally, I like having things clean and there. I don't understand necessarily how to have things in a different place. Now, in some cases, it's entirely appropriate. CSS obviously works. And I talked to the inventor of CSS only 2 weeks ago to try to stretch him into working with us in XR. So that's an example of where it's useful. But the reality of it is we work with what we have, which is basically academic repositories or publishers. So it's mostly PDF. When we can, HTML, clearly better. So that's the starting position. We don't want to be in a situation where we say we're not going to work with it because it's not good enough. We just have to accept it. Now, what we really hope to do in the community is go far, far beyond that. I had a meeting with one of the large computer professional organizations a few months back, where we talked about augmenting the PDF using Visual Meta. And one of the people there said, no, PDF is rubbish, old-fashioned, we should go beyond it. I said, I agree on every point. What should we use as the standard to do that? And no one had any answers. So all that says to me is, if someone has something to suggest, we absolutely have to try to figure out how that works. But the key thing is despite liking the Apple headset and whatnot, it has to be transferable. It has to be open, it has to be clear.
I totally agree.
There's a lot at stake here. This is, as I said in the introduction, and I really want to highlight it. In the near future, let's say in 10 years, everybody will have a headset in their bag, right? Whether it's going to be useful to work with, like a thinking cap, which is how we think of it now, or if it's going to be for watching movies, playing games, and so on, that's entirely up to people like us. It's not going to make as much money, but it will move us forward.
Jen just wrote something in the chat. Jen, can
Yeah.
you talk about this? I'm interested in how we can recycle existing docs, knowledge bases into 3D formats. Can you talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah. There's a presentation on it on YouTube as well. For if you just I'll link the video later. But I could also
Thank you.
just spawn something as like an example of such. Essentially, it's a project that we're using Markdown, and then we're just converting that into GLTF files in a way that is also optimized. Because if you were to just do it kind of like as textures, it would be way too big of a file. So we atlas the fonts, and then we also do some instancing as well, so that you can kind of read everything in a way that's clear and sharp. And I've got a sort of a graphic here I could just share, and I could drop an example GLTF as well.
Is this the thing that I forget if it was NAR or A was working on?
It was A.
Yeah, GLTF is definitely something we're looking at. And right now we're also trying to figure out what should be in 3D and what isn't useful in 3D, which is a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, I love that idea, Jen, because we teach 3D modeling in our programs. Our students are very comfortable with turning things from born digital objects into 3D, but we don't want to work in 2D in a 3D space. That just seems counterproductive. So what does an essay look like that's three-dimensional in 3D space?
Yeah, and I'm interested in
what's the value of that?
Well, we're kind of going for different template layouts. Like you can maybe do a sort of horizontal or a grid, expansion of a multi-page document. You can do something vertical, but then I'd like to experiment with maybe trees of conversation and whatnot. Like if you're to try and describe a GitHub discussion or thread where people are replying to each other.
Jin answers this right now or in the chat, but one advantage of 3D text could be, for example, Kanban boards.
Hang on. I can't hear you very well. I'm going to have to go closer to you. Where are you? The spatial audio is cool, but it's not always.
If you type in /audio mode 0, I believe that disables the spatialized audio.
Okay, thank you. Right. Yeah, please continue. I apologize.
You're referring to me?
Yeah, I think you were talking, and I just couldn't hear you well, so I just had to change the audio. But now I can hear you all very well. Thank you.
What was the trick? Okay. I'm not sure if Jin is speaking, but the one advantage of 3D text could be, for example, Kanban boards, where you put your virtual posts on a 3D Kanban board sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
can you hear me now?
absolutely. Sorry.
And Jen, what were you saying? Because you were talking about something else, 3D visualizations of some sort.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
hear
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, here's an example. I just found one of the text files. Finally, it's upside down. What I was saying is layouts. So like horizontal, vertical, but then want to
How
experiment
do we
with.
get rid of the spatial audio?
/ audio mode 0 in chat.
Yeah, here we go. But yeah, if you walk up to this, you can kind of see how crisp the text looks, and the file size is kept really low because of the atlasing and instancing. So it's how many draw calls is it? It is 14 draw calls, probably the images. But yeah, I want to experiment with different types of sort of like. Let me grab another image as to like how things can look visualized. Broken.
Yeah.
That's why we think in terms of libraries, by the way, broken links are too ever present and too annoying and too dangerous.
All right, here's another image then.
Okay.
So, like, something that's linear, like a document, versus if you were to do text to GLTF of like a discussion or a thread, it would, take a whole new different shape or dynamic. So, just finding ways to kind of parse JSON and Markdown to JSON to create new sort of visualizations of it in space. And also, like, you can go beyond the page. As you can see, like these images, they can like also go a little bit on the z-axis forward and go a little bit out of the page. And it would be cool to like pluck things out, if it's a GLTF file that the images are nodes, and then you could just kind of like grab those.
Yeah, so I built a virtual library museum that's called The Next. And so the idea behind it was that the work that we're putting in there, the kind of work that we're collecting are interactive, participatory, and experiential works, right? There are a lot of old Flash works and things like that. And I've written another little grant that allow us to do some VR visualizations of space in that space. Right now it's still 2D, but we do have a visualization space where you can actually see some of the physical artifacts that are in the boxes in my lab that are now online that you can actually manipulate with your hands, the 3D space, but it's still not satisfactory, right? Because we want to be 3D in a 3D environment. So, but I love what I'm seeing here because this is what we're visualizing even for the future of text, because what does it mean to read in a 3D space? What does text need to look like? What does a library look like in this space?
Yeah, and I'm really interested in like creating war rooms, or like if you were to like want to create a research hub, you could have a whole bunch of different like pieces of text around you, and maybe there could be an AI agent that also, like, with using the eye tracking, can kind of tell what you're interested in and kind of expand. Like, you can discuss topics with it, and maybe with a vector database as well, you could kind of just talk with your knowledge base.
That is something. Sorry, please, Danny.
I was going to say, have you ever been into a cave? The cave environments that were really popular in the 90s and 2000s.
I've seen pictures.
Yeah, they cost millions of dollars to build, right? They're very expensive. But what I've always wanted was a cave environment for text, where you can actually manipulate the text inside that space. But that's where I'm headed in my head for the project we're doing. But what you're saying is exactly makes sense to me too.
So my academic affiliation, in addition to Deanie's amazing Washington State University lab, is with the University of Southampton here in the UK. We had a discussion, some of us, 2 weeks ago on something similar to this. And one of the guys, he has made an LLM that represents a philosopher, specific philosopher. This is done with that philosopher's contribution, not just about this person. And it's not supposed to answer questions about what that philosopher thinks or something that is known. It's supposed to be a provocation to help both that philosopher and us ask it questions about crazy things, but based on that perspective, give us new things. So similar to what you're talking about, what we're looking at, because right now we're being very careful, Dini and I have to really focus on XR, not just suddenly go into AI space, but we're looking at a fun thing like where you have this philosopher as an agent, LLM, whatever the language might be. I actually want to call it Ellen, like the lady's name Ellen with the last name M, like LLM. Anyway, that's just stupid. Right, being in your environment and being aware of what's going on in the environment. So if you're looking at even a traditional document, very similar to what you said, this thing might even speak and say, from my perspective, what you're reading right now doesn't make sense because of these other things. So the idea would be to populate a space with different views, graphical views like you showed, which are excellent and we need to work on. A few different types of these agents that are in different spaces. So when you go through knowledge of whatever shape or form or content, you get these perspectives. And my dream personally is to allow yourself to build that, because you're talking about kind of a murder wall from a TV show or a Kanban board. Absolutely agree, 100%. Imagine you build a 3D version of that, which is also a memory palace. And it helps you understand a certain thing, and you have different rooms for different aspects of your work. And then you have a furious dialogue with a friend. You have a big argument over something. And you say, and you're both wearing headsets, and you say to your friend, but you're looking at it wrong. And you do some kind of a gesture in XR to collapse all of that into a thing. And the question is, what is that thing that you can then throw to your friend? Or will expand it in their point of view and see quite literally your mental point of view on the issue. And that will, of course, also be influenced by whatever AI agents or LLMs or whatever they have in their view. So instead of just arguing isolated strings of knowledge, we can argue and have discussion based on hugely transmitted perspectives. Sorry, that took a while.
That's good. Yeah. Kind of reminds me, when the whole World Wide Web was emerging, technologists were using it to collaborate with one another. And I think that spatial tech needs to evolve much in the same way, where we find use cases where we can use it for collaboration and build tools to kind of, and just improve that information bandwidth between nodes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been lucky enough to have a few conversations with Tim Berners-Lee, and I think he's much wiser than how I generally come across him, just his deep perspective. We have to get back to making this knowledge-connected world for deep dialogue, rich interactions, and not just watching cooler TV.
Well, we're moving towards a convergence, right? I mean, AI is driving some of this too. It's like, how do we converge these technologies that have been sitting there? The web, as it's currently being used and expressed, is not fully what the web can be. We're not really using the web in its full capacity. So how can we leverage what's there to build a better environment? What is AI? How is that going to work with us? What about the XR? How do these things come together so that we can start to rethink the way we're working and thinking? I mean, this is going to change the way we function. So.
Yeah, that's the important thing. And I also believe that the fact that AI and VR coming into maturity, useful maturity at the same time, is a crucially important thing, because if we don't have VR, we can't deal with the AI in an intelligent way.
I think we're harkening back. I've been laughingly saying we're harkening back to the cyberpunk period, right? The 80s of Neuromancer and Sinners by Pat Cadigan. And those works that we're looking at this cybernetic space is something that was you know, consensual hallucination, as Gibson called it, but also ripe, just completely ripe for redefining what it is to be human, right? And I think that's what makes it interesting for me is to see this return to, and then what have we learned in these 30 years that this is, our 40 years with Neuromancer, that we can rethink all of this.
Yeah, that's the key. I'm sorry, I've just been told that our guests are leaving, so I'm afraid I have to leave. Too many family friends to insult. I'm so grateful for this time, and I would strongly invite you to join us whenever you want. If you join us on a Monday, there's no reason for you to be there every Monday. If you can be there for an hour, half an hour, if you have to leave early, just say bye. It's not a very formal thing. It is extremely casual. It is by people who love the potential of this technology like you guys do.
I'm going to drop the URL to the site for everybody in here, so just give me a second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to have to run. People are running out the door. Bye, guys. And again, happy Easter, and thank you very much for today.
Happy Easter. Thank you so much for coming.
That's the Zoom chat, so you can meet us there anytime. So thank you, folks, for your time, and I hope to see you again. I'll be in your Discord, so I'll be hanging out there with you folks, and I'll come to these events if you just keep me posted.
Sounds good. Nice.
I've got a
Carlos.
question. Yeah, hi, Jen.
Is that you? Is this
Yeah.
you in the pic? That's you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, never mind.
No, okay, yeah, no. Interesting.
What were you asking about, Carlos?
Yeah, I was asking why I can't log into Hubs to get my avatar that I already have.
Oh,
Is it locked out?
So it's we used to host this on Mozilla's Hub server, but this is actually hosted on my own instance of Hub's Community Edition.
I got it. So I can't log into it. Okay.
Yeah, I still need to. I think theoretically I should be able to turn on user registrations for this now because I think it's in a pretty stable state.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why some stuff you might not be the same
Access
as what you were familiar with.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Everybody, happy Easter.
Yeah, happy Easter.
Yeah. I don't celebrate it, but I respect it for the people that do care about it. Jen, how are you? It's been a while.
Good. It was a refreshing discussion that we had today. And A is here now. I invited him when I told him I'm shilling his project.
Did you haven't been to the Meta Crew in a while?
I haven't been in a bunch of things.
Stuff.
I've been just like really heads down with these avatar projects, and I'm like drowning in avatar assets and wearables.
That sounds desperate.
It's a lot of stuff. Tens of thousands of assets.
Yeah, I saw when we realized you had made the mistake on Twitter, and I was just like, oof. The
mistake?
The Arweave thing. It was
oh
like,
yeah,
the off by one.
I fixed it. It costed $300, but I fixed it, and it was a good learning lesson. I thought I would be wasting block space, but no, you could do name collisions and overwrite stuff. That's cool.
Learn from your mistakes.
It's all school supplies. In fact, the school supplies were donated to me, so that's cool. And the founder of Arweave reached out, so he's actually really interested in like metaverse preservation, and throughout these little side projects I'm working on, and it's building tools to kind of create something like the Wayback Machine, but for virtual worlds.
Yeah, it was cool to hear Danae did like preservation with like old Apple stuff too, because I was also briefly interested in that for a time. I got this like very old, very obscure like QuickTime Macromedia Director game from Japan that was like made for God, what is it? Mac OS 9, Mac OS 8. I think it was released in like 1999, and there's like no internet record of it anywhere. So that's like one of my favorite, I guess, acquisitions when I was still in my kind of rare retro game collection phase. And it's on Macintosh Garden now, so it's no longer obscure.
I just got a MacBook. I don't really see the hype.
About
I mean,
the
it's
MacBook?
pretty good hardware, I guess.
Did you get the M3?
Yeah,
Mm,
Oh wow.
it's cool, I guess, but
$2,500.
no, I got the cheapest MacBook Air.
Mm.
Yeah, I
What
got a
is it?
MacBook with
1800?
It was like 14 with
Tax.
16 gig RAM,
Mm.
and that I needed it for Vision Pro type stuff, and yeah, Xcode eats up a lot of storage, but
So, Jin, you do have an Apple Vision Pro?
yeah, I just
And
got
your
a head strap for it because it is kind of heavy. I feel the weight for sure, so I needed to get an aftermarket thing that just got delivered last week.
Which one did you get?
Panda.
Panda. Oh.
Yeah.
It has a strap that goes over the top of the head.
Yeah. I just got to hook it up and try that out. But I mean, I thought that, the killer thing with it would be the virtual display from MacBook Air, but compared to Moonlight and Sunshine, which lets you do that from kind of any PC or Linux, Moonlight and Sunshine are just really good as well. It's just that when you have a MacBook Air connected to Vision Pro, you can use the keyboard and mouse on like any screen you're looking at. It has like cursor sharing and keyboard sharing across everything. I'm just kind of taking note of all these little quality of life things.
Nuances.
But it is like it is a good productivity type like setup. But I do like what I see from people posting WebXR battle stations and the Quest 3 with like live editing and AR. That's something that we don't really have with Vision Pro. That it's I hope we get immersive AR and multi-app type things like what Rick is working on with the overlay browser. If it's a fixed position only, but I really hope that that kind of brings back some of those ExoKit ideas we tried back in the day.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember with that proposal too that it's like when the overlay browser is open, like your input is like fixed to the browser until it's dismissed again.
Yeah, so what's the good part of that? I mean, it's just like it's like bringing up just like a fixed positional WebXR overlay that like what are the use cases of that versus something that it's like volumetric?
I don't know like if he had a specific use case in mind for it. I think it's the one thing that off the top of my head I can imagine is like, for an e-commerce sort of thing, you could be like in the virtual shop or whatever, and then you could like interact with something, and then that calls the virtual overlay up for you to actually do the like payment interaction.
Oh, like a browser?
Yeah.
Because
before you would have to be kicked out of it if you're in headset and then interact with the flat 2D panel. And with this, now that you can like use the browser while in an immersive experience, that kind of streamlines that a little bit. Of course, the thing about that though is that there are like no virtual shops to really do this in at the moment.
I know, yeah.
It's like Rebuff Reality had a Cybershop thing for the longest time, but it's not active anymore. It's like you could inspect all the different wearables and stuff. I contracted with them way back. That was like one of my very first WebXR gigs.
There was this other one. What was it?
It was
It
on the
was
new
forked
tat
from
page.
Hubs. What was it? Either way, like one thing I like about Vision Pro is this bringing multi apps back into the kind of consciousness. And now we have like these analogies, like we could kind of refer to volumes, and people all kind of get it. Whereas talking about multi apps back in the day, it felt so niche and misunderstood. And yeah, that's kind of an exciting new wave of interest. And I think, you know, whatever the proposal is right now, eventually we'll kind of see like, you know, how volumes are just going to be better. And if the browser, even if it's behind a flag, if we can just experiment with some of those Metachromium ideas again, I would do so many more demo videos and like grants and stuff to just show what's possible, because it's like the best path for a positive sum future between WebXR and native. They're complementary. They don't have to compete. You get suddenly new distribution, you know, where it's like your WebXR gadgets can be overlays with all these other programs.
It'd be really cool to see a refresh of Metachromium, but like based on OpenXR type stuff. Because I remember from what I looked at, Avier was hooking into like OpenVR stuff specifically to do the kind of overlays, like hooking into like the depth buffers and other stuff. I think, but I know there's like a OpenXR like overlay extension, but I think it's only supported on Monado actually.
I heard someone is working on something based on Electron and just compiling, like, just adding WebXR support to an Electron app.
Yeah, because I mean we know that's possible, right? Ever since James did that one experiment with it where he had to like dig into like Windows ACLs to figure out why Chrome wasn't letting the WebXR experience happen.
Is that, you think, maybe like easier for maintenance than like maintaining Chromium? Because compiling Chromium is quite a beast.
It is a chore. Yeah, no, I remember doing patches for like WebXR Chromium stuff. Like my computer, I have a Ryzen 5 2600 and 32 gigs RAM, and like a from scratch Chromium compile takes like an hour and a half.
Oof.
Yeah.
Ouch. The James, who is the James you're referring to?
Oh, James By, Janus Webb.
Yeah, he wrote a post on Electron and WebXR that's still kind of like the most cited thing for Electron and WebXR.
What do you guys think of Frame? What Gabriel's doing?
I like Frame. I
cool.
like the stuff that he's doing with it. We ran not last month I think, but the month before that, the meetup in Frame, because I hadn't gotten my Hubs instance stood up completely yet, and I was pretty impressed.
It seems to work fairly well for what it is. What is all the turmoil with Hubs now that they basically want to make money now? Is that correct?
Pretty much. So Hubs, which honestly I'm shocked Hubs lasted as long as it did after they laid off their XR team of 3 people in the mass layoff. So now I guess they're finally deciding to axe it, as they were working on like some pretty major new features. Like they were working on a whole like node based interactive like scripting thing, behavior graphs for Hubs. That sounds like it would have been like really cool, but yeah, it's all of it's getting kind of relegated to the community now. They don't have a lot of questions are still kind of up in the air about like what will happen with ownership of Hubs in the code, and like what's going to happen to the community Discord and all of that. The main thing that they've been doing the last little bit is like helping people transition to Community Edition because
Hmm.
Community Edition it requires Kubernetes, so obviously it's not the most approachable thing for a lot of people. Like even myself, I consider myself like fairly like proficient with web stuff, but Kubernetes is a headache. I ended up going with like a managed solution after trying and failing to set up a cluster myself on like a VPS. So they've got like instructions for getting it on the major cloud providers and whatnot. I think they just recently released a tool to let people download their data from like Mozilla's hosted server,
Hmm.
and they've already sort of discontinued allowing people to subscribe to like their old AWS Hubs Cloud thing. So
Right.
really, right now we're just waiting to hear like what is Mozilla want to do like with hubs now. There's a group of people that have already started kind of like forming a kind of community um, effort around it to like start maintaining things, but it's still very early days for that. And I think there's not going to be a ton of movement on that until they actually communicate with Mozilla and sort of figure out what what can the community have and what will Mozilla not give them. Um, they probably are gonna have to rename it, I would imagine, and then
Mm.
they might
Rebrand.
rebrand. Yeah, say goodbye to the duck.
MSub, do I know you
As in,
as on Discord or something? Have we interacted before?
I'm not sure. I am
Is
M2
that
on the Discord, but I don't know your
okay?
handle offhand.
Okay. So I'm Carlos, and I deal with Matt Cool and with Michael Moran and
Mm.
Dom, and what was the other guy's name? A couple of other people that were part of this group. And then Michael, I ran into Michael Moran, and he told me about all the upheaval with pubs and so forth.
Mm.
And so I'm sad to see it,
Yeah.
but to go in the direction it is. But I understand people just realize you have to have these servers running and you have to pay the bill, and so you
Hmm.
need to make money.
Yeah.
So
It
that's it.
is. It's unfortunate, but even when I saw the news, it was like I was disappointed, but at the same time not surprised.
Hmm. Yeah, neither was I.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it actually with a bunch of platforms, Alt Space, High Fidelity, Wave, VR or XR,
Mm.
whatever. They all come and go. Well, I'm gonna bow out. It's I just wanted to stop in, Jen. I saw your post, and I'm always kind of keep an eye out because you're always doing very interesting things. Uh, wish you luck. Do not drown. If you need a lifesaver, I'm happy to send you one, even if candy.
Appreciate it.
And hope to see you around the Meadowrick. Meadowrick is working with a couple of actors trying to set up a new play and working hard on the world
In
with
VR
Deidre.
chat?
Yeah, with Deidre and with Steve uh, Brusco, or I can't even pronounce his last name, but Deidre Lyons that did
Interesting.
Respite and is part of the Ferryman collection, which is a bunch of actors that do VR projects.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, and MetaRick is actually now Quest compatible. He's remember in his world he had a prison that you went into automatically if you were on Quest. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Well, he's moved away from that, and now he's super optimizing worlds so that you can go in with a Quest. So
That's good. I
interesting.
mean, if he's doing virtual production, the Quest 3 has that inside out tracking
That's right.
for full body. So it's like you can have anybody be a remote actor with a Quest 3.
Yeah, it's nice. Do you have the Q3 too?
No,
No.
I feel like I should because it's so good for WebXR. It's just that
You can buy it on Facebook Marketplace for really cheap and not pay tax on it. I bought a lot of stuff off of Facebook Marketplace, and one of the things I did get a Quest 2. I did buy the Quest 3 brand new when it came out in October, but yeah, there's a lot of people that buy them and then they don't want them, and they'll sell them for 300, 350, which is below market price. So you
oh,
should
good tip.
yeah, look into that.
Yeah, I do buy a lot of secondhand type stuff. Like
Yeah, if it works, why not?
exactly.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
kind of already assumed you had a Quest 3, to be honest, Jen.
Mm.
I had a Quest 2, and I keep reading that it wasn't that big of a upgrade.
No, it's pretty good.
Oh,
It,
and a Quest Pro. So I bought the Quest Pro, and I'm like,
uh,
No, that was a mistake.
yeah, no, the
the
pass
eye
through of
tracking
Quest
though.
3 is like got the
Yeah,
night
it's
and day
not.
difference between
Yeah,
Quest Pro, and apparently it got even better in the most recent update too. Like exposure has been kind of like adjusted, so it's like even easier to read your phone like in pass through now.
yeah, right.
Wow.
And also they added two more speakers on each side of the head. So I went into VR chat and went into one of these music events, and I can go, wow, that really sounds good now. And you have to get a different strap, obviously, which I did. And the strap I got has a halo that goes over the top of your head. So a lot of the weight is taken off, the back of your head and your face. And then I have it tethered to a machine so I can do PCVR. But I'm really happy with it.
That's what I'm kind of stuck on because all
On what?
these devices, they are so like I want to do streaming to any of my headsets, Quest or a Vision Pro, but it always requires booting Windows, and I'm a Linux person.
Mm,
And now I'm just thinking like maybe my best move is to virtualize Windows with GPU pass through, and it's a whole thing that I'd have to do. And right now I'm just kind of in archiving sort of mindset, just dealing a
eh,
lot with metadata and all these other things that I will eventually want to kind of build into a cool museum or library in a spatial context, especially with what A is working on with text to GLTF. But yeah, it's going to take me a while to get all the assets kind of prepped. I'm doing a lot with also like making sure that the provenance is there, like injecting the metadata into the GLTF files as well. There's a lot that goes into sort of like preservation and archiving.
absolutely.
You mentioned streaming to headset. You talking about like streaming VR content to headset?
ALVR type
Yeah,
stuff.
I was about
Yeah.
to say
Have you tried it? I mean,
ALVR
kind
on
of
Linux.
works. It's
Yeah,
gotten way better, but yeah, on from a Linux host, still pain.
Mm.
Maybe it's just the headset, like, or the router. There's so many different things I hear. It's like
True.
finicky. It's like, if your microwave is on, if someone else is using the, if I will maybe get like a separate router, something my desktop has
Or just
Wi-Fi 6E.
enclose your room in a Faraday cage, and then there's no interference.
Yeah.
Jen, one project that I'm involved with is in the chat right now. If you
Oh,
want to have a
museum.
look at it, and it's a very ambitious project, spearheaded by a guy by the name of Julian Reyes. He's out in the Bay Area.
That's a
He's
beautiful looking architecture. Oh, that's
he
AI.
he's got a lot of fingers in all kinds of projects. One of the things he thrives on is DJing. In fact, he's coming to Texas, where I am, for the Eclipse to do this mega concert with a bunch of DJs for 3 days or something like that. And but he's spearheading this, and I'm helping him with doing video in Whirl. And what he wants to do is put like embassies in all the different platforms and then link them together.
Oh, that's really
Obviously,
cool.
yeah, obviously it doesn't work right now for many of the platforms, but he's trying to set up the infrastructure that is a solid system that then he can take that to like people like VR Chat or Rec Room or so forth, and that the developers there might give him the time of day to be able to maybe find a way to integrate the embassy inside of the platform to be where you could move from one platform to another kind of thing. I mean, that's what we're all trying, I think, or a lot of us are trying to do, is to have one place that you can move around without seamlessly, right?
Yeah.
Ready Player Me kind of thing. But
I
anyway,
have a proposal for a museum of avatars that I have someone potentially interested in helping to fund. But this proposal, it kind of reminds me of what I'm looking at here, except it's more ambitious, having it in lots of different platforms. It's a really cool project. I think there is some alignment between an avatar museum and this one.
yeah, yeah. What is it that you say you're drowning in avatars? What can you in
No
25 words
assets.
or less, or assets? Tell
Well,
me.
same thing, you know. I mean, it's like I'm archiving wearables, and I'm also like helping some collections create VRMs. So I'm literally dealing with it, like thousands of assets to create avatars with, and converting a whole bunch of assets, and like yeah, just dealing a lot with avatars and wearables lately.
And so those are the components that it takes to build to create an avatar, is the assets that you need to do that.
Yeah, but there's so much more I'm involved in, like the tools to build them. Like Character Studio is something that M3 is working on, a open source avatar builder.
Mm-hmm.
But it's become more of a Swiss Army knife. Like we can use it to also kind of construct all these avatars, and then so yeah, for creating like a lot of avatars all at once, you kind of like gather all the ingredients and then the different layers, and then you have to build tools to kind of do quality assurance. And there's a lot else that kind of you have to kind of make sure that they have the right shaders, that the armatures are good and consistent, and um,
And
you know, make sure that yeah, a lot of
this is
stuff.
Blender and Unity and whatever other
Blender, Unity,
all the
JavaScript, Bash
everything.
scripts, a lot of little micro tools to kind of help organize data. Yeah.
Are you getting paid to do this, or is this a project of your own?
Half and half. The
Okay.
Avatar project's paid, but
Mm-hmm.
the archiving stuff is a side project.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind
Well,
of community supported a bit though, like some donations that flew in a couple years ago.
mm-hmm. Do you have a Patreon for that, or are you using another system?
Another system I can
Mm-hmm.
link it. It's called Juicebox, and we kind of need to refresh it, but it has a way of kind of like it's kind of like Patreon, but for crypto.
Right. Well, you could send Julian a connect on LinkedIn, and he's very, very good at
I don't
responding
have
to
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I can put you in touch with him, and if you look over his website or the website, and then see how you guys align each other, I'm happy to put you in touch with him and bring you into the project if it fits.
What's
If
the
you're interested.
timeline for this museum?
Well,
Uh,
it's all right now. There's a lot. If you look at the team, all those people are volunteers, and so there are people that are building the assets, others that are doing the PR stuff. I'm doing the video and blah blah blah, and all the descriptions are there. So just have a look at it, and you can reach out to me on Discord, ping me, and say, hey, I'm ready to look into this or not. Doesn't I just think you're one of the more talented people in the XR
Oh,
environment.
Keyframe.
Yeah, you know him. The
Yeah,
name.
he shows up at OMI meetings.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Evo. Oh, yeah, I know these people.
Yeah, I know you do. It's a small community.
Yeah. Oh, this is
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. And MSub, is that what you go by, MSub 2?
Yeah, M sub 2 or just M2 for short.
Okay. And what's your thing? What is it that you do?
What I do? So I mean, my day job, I work for Zesty. I work on like we do Zesty Market, which basically is like a kind of banner ads for WebXR experiences
Mm-hmm.
thing. Helps devs monetize their virtual spaces. We're on a lot of the HeyVR .io games out there, like Barista Express Archery, Dungeon Archery Training. A lot of the stuff that's on the new tab page has a Zesty integration. And then as for my side projects, I do a lot of I do some open source contribution stuff. I do a little bit of browser hacking. Recently, I've been working on Servo, implementing support for the Gamepad API, and I'd like to get back
Mm-hmm.
to their WebXR implementation at some point too. But it's complicated. Moonar doesn't use Zesty because Diego doesn't want to monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
think
always
Elijah
been.
has asked him like a couple times, and that's the answer that Diego gives back. It's like it's just supposed to be an example project. Doesn't want to put ads on it. Which, fair enough.
It should be an example project for monetization too. Like,
yeah. Well,
that's what
that would
split.
be advertising for WebXR, like in a huge way. Hey, there's money to be made in this ecosystem. Like,
yeah. But
That
I
was
need
a
to
big
have an intervention with Diego.
that was
I
a
mean,
big
good
problem
luck.
with the two guys from Neos. That one wanted to make money and the other one didn't, and so they split it up, and now they've got Resonite. So anyway, I'm going to bug out. It was good talking to you all and catching up.
Yeah,
Again,
thanks for
happy
stopping by.
Easter and all that kind of stuff, and thanks for the hospitality.
Yeah, happy Easter.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Cheers.
Yeah. Get back to work. See y'all in Discord. Cheers.
All right. See ya.